Hey guys, a woman was just beaten on a global stage for everyone to see by a man, and no one is really doing anything about it. Check it out.
I'm just going to try and tell people the facts here of what has happened. First of all, the women's boxing today in Paris featured a bout between Algeria's Imani Khalif and Italy's Angela Carini. The bout finished after 46 seconds with a punch from Khalif, which Carini in the nose, bout's over. She subsequently said that's the hardest punch she had ever felt. She didn't acknowledge Khalif when the bout ended. She just left. Now, there are serious politics at play on a number of angles.
You know, this woke society is ruining everything that we used to love. That was normal and common sense. Like the Olympics. You could watch it, enjoy the sport and the athletes who work so hard. Now, personally, I decided this year not to support the Olympics after they mocked my God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ on a global stage and also exposed testicles to kids and danced with. Anyway, you can watch that video later on. So the only thing I see now is news of what is happening, and I cannot stay silent when there is wrong in the world. As Christians, we should have no part in the unfruitful works of evil, but instead expose them, right? We need to talk the truth in love if we really care for other people. And so I want to ask, where are all the feminists? Where are you? You're so vocal in all other areas, but when it comes to men who identify as women, compete in women's sports, and steal their medals, you are silent. Why?
After just 46 seconds and several sharp punches to the head, including the nose by Khalif, Carini abandoned the fight, threw her helmet to the floor, stormed off the boxing ring, and in fact went on to say that she had never felt such strong blows in a contest before.
Why are you silent now while men, and yes, they are men, biological men, when they are ruining women's sport? So let me explain this. Khalif is not trans, but they assigned him at birth as female. In Algeria, you cannot legally gender change someone. So people like him, they have XY chromosomes, but not properly formed genitalia. So they're still men and should not be allowed to compete in women's sport. Some of these women trained years, their whole lifetimes, to achieve success for that dream to one day win or even just take part in the Olympics or in professional sport. But now they are robbed because of men.
And controversy. Leah Thomas, a swimmer on the University of Pennsylvania's women's swim team, has become the first openly transgender athlete to win a Division I NCAA championship.
Now, the boxer in question has high levels of testosterone, but she is a woman. And the Olympic Committee wants to make it very clear this is not a transgender issue. In just 46 seconds, with a single punch to the nose, Italian boxer Angela Carini forfeited her Olympic match against Algerian Iman Khalif, sparking worldwide controversy.
I mean, you could see that there was a real distinct power difference. It was a bad situation.
Satisfied domestic and international criteria. She was competing in men's events until she transitioned in 2012.
What is more shocking is that the Olympic officials have no problem with it. Watch.
Real people, and we're talking about real people's lives here. They have competed and they continue to compete in the women's competition. They have lost and they have won against other women throughout over the years. And by the way, this should make this absolutely clear for everyone. This is not a transgender issue. I know you know that, but I think there has been some misreporting on this. And I think it's very, very important to say that this is not a transgender issue. These women have been competing in competitions for many years.
The IBA they had their eligibility rules for testosterone levels, so a sex test. Imani Khalif had raised levels of testosterone. It did not enter within their eligibility criteria, so she was not allowed to compete. They said those elevated levels of testosterone gave her a significant advantage. And IOC, on the other hand, they acknowledge, their spokesperson Mark Adams said the other day, from the IOC's point of view, is that Imani Khalif She's a woman on our passports, therefore we're not going to stigmatise her. There's going to be no witch hunt. She is free to fight in the women's boxing category here.
Let's not focus on this man a little bit, but look at the woman. She cried after just a few seconds and says it is enough. And no one is helping her. No one is standing up for her.
One more quote from the defeated Italian. Boxing is a sport that teaches you to have respect for the opponent. It cannot and must not become an abuse.
I want to ask all influencers out there, and women and men, to say, this is enough. This is where we draw the line. We had enough of the swimming and the other sports where men keep on stealing the rewards that women should get in women's sports.
University of Pennsylvania swimmer Leah Thomas taking first place in the NCAA 500-yard freestyle. She is the first transgender athlete to be crowned NCAA champion, but not without controversy, because critics say she has an unfair physical advantage over the other swimmers and should not have been allowed to compete. Now, second place went to University of Virginia swimmer Emma Wyant, who won a silver medal in last year's Tokyo Olympics. She's getting an outpouring of support on social media, with some calling her the true winner. And we saw, Lauren, at that medal ceremony, the crowd was virtually silent when Leah Thomas was announced the winner, the first place winner, and yet they went crazy cheering for the second place
because
winner.
Leah Thomas went through puberty, right, as a boy. She has bigger lungs, bigger arms, bigger hands, and now she's competing against women who don't have that physically.
And Khalif is not the only one getting attention. Taiwan boxer Lin Yu-ting is competing in the Olympics and has also been deemed a biological male, according to the International Boxing Association. In a statement, the IBA said in part, this test conclusively indicated that both athletes did not meet necessary eligibility criteria and were found to have competitive advantages over other female competitors.
And let me also say this very clearly, because people believe this huge lie and they say, well, I have been born in the wrong body. There's no facts that cannot be proven. When you're born, you're a baby, and you either have your private parts, female or male. That is it. You are not born in the wrong body, or you cannot say I've been born gay, because a baby is a baby. A baby knows nothing about the other sex or its own sex because it is a baby. And as children get older, they are not interested in sexual matters until they come of age. So let me say this with a lot of love, because you need to live in truth and understand who you truly are, your identity. That God said clearly, He made us in His image, male and female. And there's beauty in that. There are certain things that women can do that men cannot do, and vice versa. We need each other. Genesis 1, verse 27. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him. Male and female, He created them. Now, are there certain men that's more sensitive or emotional than other men? Of course. And there's nothing wrong with that. Men are different, just like all women are different. But it doesn't mean because you're more sensitive that you are now suddenly a woman. You know, Jesus said something very interesting about this. Let me read it for you. Matthew 19, verse 12. For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth. So it doesn't mean that they are gay or that they've been born in the wrong body. It means that they have been eunuchs from birth. It means that there are certain men who are just different, who are not interested in women, because that is God's purpose for them. Now, for those of you who do not speak English as a first language, like a second or third language, right, and you don't know what this word means, eunuchs, it means it is a man who has been castrated or has a condition that prevents normal testicular function. So he is not really that interested in women. So there are men who are not that interested in women, and that is okay. But it doesn't mean you should go all the other way and now say, well, I'm going to be interested in men, or I should do a sex change. No, you're still a man. And then it says, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men. And when I studied psychology, there were a lot of case studies, and even to this day, we also know, and a lot of people do not like to talk about it, but we need to look at the truth in love, right? There are a lot of case studies that prove boys, when they are molested or raped when they were young, when they grow up, most of them become gay. So there's a psychological issue here. Then it says, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Let the one who is able to receive this receive it. So there are certain men who make themselves eunuchs. They say, I'm not going to marry because I feel that God is leading me just to worship him and to work for his kingdom. So there are different men. This is easy to understand. And let me just explain this because I think a lot of people struggle with this. There are some men who get sinful thoughts, men and women, right? But let's focus on men here, for example. If there are men who get sinful thoughts, it's an impulse, or suddenly they are tempted by having feelings for another man, sexual feelings. There are men who can get that, but then they choose not to give into those feelings or those thoughts. Just like a normal man would get an impulse or a temptation to look at another woman who is not their wife. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. So here it is not sin yet because the person is tempted by something that is outside of his control. Sometimes thoughts just pop in or things happen, but then it is not sin yet. Now you have a choice. Am I going to go ahead with this, or am I going to reject it? If you go ahead with it, you act in the flesh with your own will, intellect, emotions. But if you reject it and you choose to act in the spirit through God that helps you and guides you, then you will not give in to sin. Verse 15 says, then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. Now, to you men out there who think that you are women, and you cling to this because you see this as your new identity and you want it to be true, just think for a little. Especially if you join these communities online, there's a lot of sadness that is coming out, a lot of pain and suffering of people who go through sex changes and then they regret it. They want to turn back. There's even psychologists who tell their father and mother that you need to go through with this for your kid because otherwise they will kill themselves. Well, it is not true.
I was told, Xavier might commit suicide if he...
That was a lie right from the outset.
Incredibly evil. And I agree with you that people that have been promoting this should go to prison.
That's
so I was tricked into doing this. They call it dead naming for a reason.
Yeah,
all right. So the reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead. So my son Xavier is dead.
So there's a whole era here where you shouldn't just go into something and just believe it. You are born a man or a woman, but if you're born a man, you are not a woman. You might be a specific, unique man, maybe with more emotions, certain DNA that is in you. Or you might also be more sensitive, and that is okay, but you're still a man. And it is not right for you to identify as a woman and to steal that which belonged to other women in women's sport. It is actually evil and extremely selfish. So I want to ask you not to do that. Rather, find your identity in Jesus Christ. God created you. Find your identity in him. And to all the women out there, stand up for your rights. Do not let men do this. Do not let men destroy women's sport. Please, guys, share this video to everyone you know so that people can start to stand up for what is right. If you want to know how to deal with this woke culture, please watch this video here. I'll see you there. And never forget that God loves you. And I love you too. Bye.